Hey there everyone, my name is Buzz and I'm a full stack developer at my own company called Bytecode, and some people have asked me to do a little tutorial about this topic. So, setting up authentication between Hasura and FusionAuth. Up front, I do assume you have a little experience in at least setting up FusionAuth and Hasura and some knowledge about JSON Web Tokens. If you do not, you should follow at least getting started tutorials for the respective services. When you're building a service, you usually want to secure your data and only allow authenticated users and possibly users with a specific role to access their data. FusionAuth and Hasura can play quite nicely together in this fashion. FusionAuth being an ID provider, you can set up roles for your users, and with Hasura, you can set up rules for specific roles in the user interface with fine detail. And that's what I really like about Hasura. So let's look at an example. Your user has authenticated themselves with the FusionAuth backend and has received the JSON Web Token in return. If you try to use this token to get data from Hasura, it will obviously fail, because Hasura has no way to verify the token or and if what roles the user is trying to access. To get this working, the token needs to contain some data for Hasura to work with and to verify the JSON Web Token in its backend. When we're done, the user authenticates with FusionAuth. They will then receive a JSON Web Token populated with some information for Hasura. The user then uses that token to request some data. Hasura will read the data added to our token and use the secret key FusionAuth used to sign the token and verify it, and will then send back some of the requested data, or an error based on your rules. Now let's get into the details. Let's start by going to your FusionAuth dashboard. And again, in this tutorial I assume you already have to set up or know how to set up a FusionAuth service. Go to your Customizations tab and select Lambdas. Create a new Lambda and make sure it has the following code. I will paste this in the description below. Make sure you have the type set to JWT populate and give it a name. I call it JWT Hasura populate, but it can be anything you want. Make sure you add any roles in this array that you want to use or have this access token work for. And also make sure you have a default role set, because you need a default role. And then save the settings. Now go to your existing application, or make a new one if you haven't already. Go to the JWT tab and make sure it's enabled. Or if you use the global tenant JSON Web Token, then you don't have to need it enabled, obviously. Then go to the bottom. There should be a section called Lambda Settings. So either in access token or ID token, select the Lambda we just made. It doesn't really matter. It really depends on your own setup. But I usually put it in the access token. If that's wrong, sue me. And then save the settings. Finally, go to your Settings tab and select Key Master. On the Key Master page, you will see a couple of default keys. Look for the default signing key and click on the Details button. You should see a couple of details, and one of them is called Secret. You have to reveal it and then copy the value and optionally paste it somewhere like in Notepad until we get ready to use it. So now we can go to Hasura. So for Hasura, we really only have to do two things. So first up, we have to set an environment variable for your Hasura instance. If you use Hasura Cloud, just log in, go to your instance, and add a new environment variable. Call the environment variable Hasura GraphQL WT secret. I will paste this obviously in the description again, and fill with the following value. In my case, I use a Docker container, so I'm gonna add the following environment variable Hasura GraphQL WT secret, and add the following value. So here we paste the key we got from our key master, the secret. and we paste it in here. I have to do it within the quotation marks, depending on your own environment. You do it with or without, up to you. And that's it. And now all we have to do is set up the roles for your application. So go into the settings and the permissions of your Hasura tab, and give them whatever. So here we give the user permission to select as long as they are part of the user group and if they exist in our table actually. And so we click x-hasura-user-id, and because we now populate the JSON Web Token from FusionAuth, this value exists in our token. So it's going to read it automatically and use it within the parameters. So, and that's about it. So now we can use FusionAuth and Hasura to authenticate your users. So I hope this tutorial has been useful for you, and if you have any comments, let me know in the comments below. So, yeah, well, see ya.